what we're doing, as you remember from our intro video, is we're going to make that insane 55, our version of that insane 55 Chevy that I showed you in the last video. And to get started, we're going to start working our modifications on the body first. So there's a couple things that need to be done. First off, we're going to chop off the front fenders. Both fenders have to go. As you can see here, I kind of put this tape down as a guide to where I want to cut. And what I decided is I don't want to cut them off at the actual fender joint. I don't like, it would be too empty here. I don't like that. So I decided I'm going to go from the cowl where the fender meets the cowl, and I'm going to wrap it around so it gives a little bit more body here, wrap it around and angle it down to just past the door. And that's kind of the look we're going for right there. Okay. The idea of the tape is just that, it's a tape guideline. So I'm going to use my probably end up using my saw, unless I can go out and get a really good cutting blade from my Dremel. I don't have one, but we're just going to hack that off there, and then we're going to come around this side. We'll do the same thing here. I already got the tape made, so it's just a matter of lining it up properly and give it in a guesstimate. So we want to go straight, and then we're going to kind of angle down just past the door, like that. Alright, that's pretty damn close, or close enough for this scale anyway. Alright, so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to cut this off, and we're going to remove this, and we're going to save this for another part of the project later. That'll get that there. Then next we need to work on the roof, okay? And what that's going to involve is cutting and doing a reverse rake on the roof, because we're going to try to make it so this roof, this is my straight line, instead of being horizontal like so, we're going to angle it down to something like that. We're going to leave it at the stock height at the windshield and drop it down a whole hell of a lot in the back. Okay? So we're going to have to be careful, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to somehow knife or something. I'm going to, if you can see that there, that mold, not mold but trim molding, I'm going to have to try to cut, I think, right along that line. That's what I'm thinking, right there, to remove it, cut the pillars, and then lower it down. It's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm not sure yet if that's the exact point. It's going to be tight because this is going to be real fragile. When I start cutting there, it's going to be very tough. Alright, so then other body modifications, we're going to hog out, make some really big ass fender wells here, and I believe we're going to, I'm not sold on it yet, but probably fill in the seams, the doors, fill them in so it's a smooth body contour there. Okay, and then also once the roof is off, also I want to open this up, at least part of it. I don't know if I'll do the whole thing, but at least part of this roof we're going to open up. So I think, anyway, we'll see. These things evolve on their own sometimes. So hang on, we'll be right back. Alright, welcome back, guys. As you can see by the shape of my 57 Del Rio and the amount of styrene blood across my desk, we've done a lot of work. What we did is we did the basic modifications. The basic modifications of the car have been completed. We still have to do a lot more detail work to it, but we're getting there. The outlining stuff is done. As you can see, we removed the nose clip. Okay, so we're going to take that off, and this is going to go away and get saved for another piece of the project. We took the roof off. Okay, the roof has been removed, and you'll notice here the pillars are gone. The pillars that were right here behind the driver's door, or the front door, has been removed also. Those pieces have been saved. I took those off nice and neatly, put them on this piece of tape, and I hang it above my lamp. I connect it to my lamp so it's always hanging there. And you'd think with all the parts that I've actually hung by my lamp, that I would remember it. No, I've lost plenty of parts hanging there in front of me and never known where they were. But anyway, keep them safe. Don't want them to get lost. The reason being is I want to use these pieces. If you look at them close, you can see there's some molding lines in there and everything like that. All right, so what I want to do is when I put the top in the spot where it's supposed to be, I want to use these parts, modify them so they fit, but still have the same details that they had before I chopped it. Okay, it's a lot easier than trying to recreate it after it's done. All right, we also hogged out the wheel wells, as you can see, made them big and large and over the top, just like on the Insane 55 video that we're using as our model. Also, I removed the key locks on here, and they have holes in this kit. It's a very nice kit. Instead of having molded in door handles, they have a hole where you're going to insert a door handle. We're not going to use the door handles because these doors are probably going to go away. So using a piece of styrene, okay, you can see here, styrene rod, I put it in a hole, glued it from both ends with some liquid styrene glue, and that's going to solidify, and I'll be able to sand that down and make it smooth, and then a little filler, and poof, voila, it's gone. The other modification I still have to do is the roof. I had said I wanted to cut a big old hole in the top of the roof, kind of like reminiscent of your 30s cars. But my problem that I was going over and over again is how to measure it out properly and make it center on the roof. I was really having a hard time about it. My head just couldn't do it for some reason. Then I flipped it over and I came up with an idea. As you can see, if you look at this kit, if I do this, you move in a little bit, you can see the car actually comes with a headliner molded in, so that's cool. I mean, you even got a spot here by my thumb for a interior light, which is really neat. But what I did is, with the curve of the roof where my thumb is, what I did is I happened to take my sanding stick and I placed it in here and I laid it flat, held it in place, and using that as a guide, I made a line with my Sharpie, and I had a line. And that line kind of lines up, if you look here, if you were to draw this straight out, across would be about the location where, you know, I want as big as I want the hole. So I did it on both sides, and then for the ends, using the headliner as a guide, I just drew a line straight across, and there I had my guide, my template. Now what I did is I took some styrene, evergreen styrene again. I know I harp on it, but it's a really good thing to have around if you're into custom building and if you're into rat rods, because you can always modify and use this stuff. Starships, anything sci-fi, this is especially, it's a must-have. So I took this and I glued it on the inside of my lines. Now, since I don't have a cutter for my Dremel, because I usually do the old punch the bit through the plastic and just let it melt away until I get the shape I want. The cutter would be more precise for this and better, and I just don't have one. So now, with these pieces glued in place, I'll let them dry really well. Now I could take the edge of my knife, wherever it wants, oh, here it is. I'm going to take the edge of my knife, just the back side, and now I can just run it against the styrene that I put in there, and I just keep going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny. Within a short order of time, surprisingly, it doesn't take as long as you would think, I will have a nice clean cut through the styrene, and then I will have a nice sized, evenly shaped hole on the outside. So cool beans, it's really neat, and that's where we are right now. So hang on, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back to work here on the roof of our 57 Extreme Ford Rat Rod. What you're looking at here is the roof. What I noticed when I took the roof, I'll explain this whole contraption in a minute, but what I noticed when I took the roof apart and everything, and then I went to go put it in place again, the back end, even though I guess because it's such an extreme rake in it, the back was coming up very short. So it was coming up, let's see if I can get my arm out of the way. it was coming up really short, kind of like this, and I didn't like that. I wanted the roof to be about where it was supposed to be when it was still on, which puts it about there. So what I had to do is I had to take out, what I did really was I cut the roof at the mold line. There's a mold line, if you've had this kit, there's a mold line where the roof comes up and it wraps right over the top and comes back out, around again. I used that as my guide. This way I knew exactly how far it was an even cut. I cut the roof off, did some measurements, and I extended the roof by, well, maybe 1/4 of an inch maybe. And to join it, once I cut it, to join it, I used some really thin evergreen stock styrene, okay? I just cut some strips out of it. And it's hard to see right now because I got these braces in here, but I glued it on both ends. It was a long piece. I glued this side of it, glued this side of it, pressed it down, and actually I used this type of tube or a paintbrush at the time and squished it in there so it had the contour of the roof line. So I did that to both sides, and then I let it sit and I let it dry overnight. Then the next day, after it was dry, it was cured. It was solid, okay. But what I noticed is the roof kind of was warped now. So what I did is these metal rods fit perfectly in the recesses of the roof line, and I taped them in there just like a splint. If you're splitting a leg or something like that, taped them in place, which gave the roof its natural appearance again. It made it nice and straight. Then using epoxy sculpt, I haven't used this stuff in a long time, but it's 2-part epoxy. This is just one, but you take 50 of this, 50 of the other one, 1-to-1 mix, and then I made it, it's all kinds of squishy, okay. And then what I did is I took a little bit and I put it inside that joint and I smoothed it out. And I used a little water on my finger to help smooth it a little bit more, And I want it to be a little larger. It doesn't shrink, but still, this way I could sand it. I don't have to reapply it again. Should bring it down to where it should be. Okay, and that will dry. And then once that dries, I should be able to remove these splints and I should have a good roof again, nice and straight. And we can attack with sandpaper and stuff like that and conform the epoxy sculpt. Epoxy sculpt is very good to work with. Once it dries, it can be hard to sand, but it will sand, it won't crumble or anything like that. You can work with it a little bit. So that'll give us a nice length on our roof, like I said. It should fit very well now, the way we want it to. To get the roof to attach here, I took some, again, the same styrene, very thin stuff. Okay, cut strips of it, put it in. Kind of looks like sun visors, doesn't it? Just on the edge. Let this dry. I'm not going to play with it right now. And I did it before I put the splints on my roof, but it laid there very nice. It held it right in place where I want it to do. And the contact points for the roof is going to be here at this corner and this corner. There's going to be a gap in between all this. So what I'll do is once I can glue the roof to here and here and get it solid, I'll let it cure really well. To fill that gap, I'll probably come back with some thin epoxy sculpt like this again, roll it out real thin, put it in there, and I'll work it with the water and put the natural curve of the roof line back in there again. So that's where we be. So hang on, we'll be right back.
It's won multiple awards. We've been to a couple of different car shows. It always gets the looks.
Well, it's a neat ride, and I appreciate you letting us film it.